episodic television has to both delay gratification and gratify when it's every single week. And like Sid just pointed out before, there are numerous problems with having to do the constant like churn of it all.
It's a total flawed model.
We know that there are obviously now plans.
We need an off-season.
We do. We need an off-season.
We know that like plans are all up in the air because of various injuries. What we think we know about The Rock is that if he says, I want in, then he gets in, and who knows how that plays out and all of that. So whilst I'm not, it's basically a 99-1. Like, I'm 99% certain Cody's going to finish the story, but I welcome them playing with that 1% of doubt because of all these extraneous factors. And what a performance of Seth Rollins here to make me buy it. Honestly, I can't give him enough flowers for this, because this is a man who, when he wrestles, rarely convinces me of the struggle he's in. When he cuts promos, I much prefer him doing lightweight, like, nonsense in his wacky outfits and his cackling. He found himself in this character.
Yeah.
And then pivoting back to being serious was like, right, we're heading back to 2019, like, best roper wrestler on the planet, period. That's effectively what this promo was, and I bought it.
Yeah.
Just such a strong vocal performance from Seth. Like, good acting is reacting, and Cody was fantastic at that as well, because if you're Cody Rhodes, how do you portray that after a year, 2 years, like the night after WrestleMania, the second year, like after coming back and then saying straight away, I want to win the belt, the Dusty didn't. Like, see you next year at WrestleMania. I didn't win it. See you next year at WrestleMania. After all of that, how do you convey? He's got me questioning.
Yeah.
Like, a fantastic display from him as well. I loved this. Again, I've only got the 1% of doubt, but I couldn't love more this as the delaying tactic while a few things get figured out.
If you told me this time yesterday they were going to do this segment on Raw, I would have laughed in your face and said there's no way this could have possibly been halfway convincing. And yeah, it was quite convincing. It was a really good night for Seth, probably the best promo he's ever cut, if I'm being perfectly honest, because, I mean, it's only...
That and Punk, he's having a good year, I guess, so far.
I thought the Punk stuff was completely outclassed by Cody and Drew's subsequent performances with him, but that's fine, that's fine. He cut a really strong promo here. You can tell, like, the best promos and the best, total cliched Maxim stuff, but the best wrestling stuff is when the wrestlers themselves believe it and they can credibly perform it, and Seth Rollins desperately wants to think that this belt means something, and he made it mean something. Better than these 3.5-star 25-minute title defenses have, for me. This is the first time it really felt like something that someone really wanted to go after and defend with pride, and it felt like a championship for probably the first time in my admittedly cynical, skewed lens. Here's something, though. You said you got 1% of doubt. Was there the possibility, if this has existed purely to just tease it, delay the inevitable, put over both titles in the same week, just have a little bit of, like, genuinely, earnestly, like, good booking in terms of, like, teasing a match that isn't going to happen, but making you want to think you might want to see it.
Yeah.
Putting over the prestige of a title that can't, by definition, really have that much prestige attached to it.
Quite effective promotion, isn't it?
Yes, very good promotion all around. Gives them a week to do whatever, if nothing else. 1% of doubt. Did you not think that they were maybe, amid constant indications from Dave Meltzer, The Rock himself on WWE Raw, that he wants a match at WrestleMania? We could probably get the Saudis to pay you 50. No, I'm a Hollywood star. I'm a board member. He earns more than Saudi money.
Yeah.
Par for the course. He wants a Mania, and he kind of still wants it, apparently. Was this testing the waters for how much are they going to reject this before we can kind of make them want to see it? That's a question. Here's another question. What, if not Cody versus Seth at this point, and I don't need to see it again, as strong as this promo was, I do not need to see it again. What is the World Heavyweight title match at Mania if it ain't Punk versus Rollins and it's not Gunther? They've done it all on Raw in, like, recent months. You can always build another match. The amount of times The Rock and Triple H wrestled in 1997 and 1998 on TV and 1999 on TV. There's an art to promotion, so that's not to say they couldn't create a great storyline between Seth and Drew again. I don't think it's likely, though. Like, what is that match?
It's Seth and Sami Zayn for me, is the answer to your question.
He's just got bitched out.
we get unbitched out in a week. It's Sami Zayn. Like, that man...
They've done it on Raw again.
That man talked up his world...
all I'm saying is they've done every permutation.
Yeah, it's a rematch. Like, Gunther obviously is there and very available to them, you know, like it doesn't harm the Intercontinental title to do they could even promote it as title for title, and Seth has proven that he can sell this title, so he can certainly sell wanting to win the Intercontinental as well. That's just because Sami Zayn is...
the idea of both of them saying, but my title's the most prestigious sort of thing.
Yeah, like that. I'm saying Sami...
regurgitate for 2 months.
Saying Sami Zayn because he's like an available babyface right now. Drew McIntyre, again, feels very done. I think, like, those characters, and there's probably a couple more I'm thinking of, but there's, like, those two in particular are characters that are in such a strong position and they've got such strong footing with who they are that they can retell the story. I'm not pitching it as, like, a WrestleMania main event, much to Seth Rollins' chagrin, probably, that he feels like he's just lost the Punk match and he's not going to get the Cody one. So he's probably not going to be best pleased, but not everything can main event, nor can it feel like a main event. It can feel credible. And I would say, yeah, Sami and Drew stick out as the characters strong enough with enough depth to sell you that match, with a chamber to win, to earn their way back into contention, because that's it, really. Like, it's a second Rumble, isn't it? Like, it doesn't matter what's happened before. It's like you win the chamber.
Bad night for Sami.
It wasn't a great night, obviously, to lose.
The character.
Yeah, the character. But again, like, him and Owens, like, there used to be a system they had to game, and it's not that kind of hurdle to overcome anymore. I don't know. I think Raw's in pretty good health for Seth, but I take your point.
Yeah, I don't think any of it feels Mania-sized. That's not a night one. I
think it's gone Cody, like a bit like last week with Cody and Punk. If they're trying to show you, as you say, like kind of like testing the water things, if Dwayne calls, like Dwayne's the one I call. Like if Dwayne rings, then and Seth's got to fight somebody. Like they're showing you, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And some are going to go down better than others. But WrestleMania's like a big card, and Seth's probably just going to lose his main event without another main eventer across. Punk was the Seth Rollins headliner. Now that, I would say that's what's been lost.
Seth needs Punk.
Yeah.
Seth needs Punk.
That's what's been lost.
Or Cody.
Aye. Like all of a sudden, like yesterday, right, I was guilty of this because I was like, I love Punk. I'm going to miss him at WrestleMania, but straight away I was like, Bayley's won the Rumble. She slots in. A load of people like Becky and Rhea. Rhea's a massive star. Nobody's going Seth. You know?
One more point, because I do actually have a criticism, of course, about the promo. I don't think you needed the additional weird bit about, it's the one that's the Hollywood title. It's the one the politic to get. You didn't need to say that. You could have just said the Dusty title, the workhorse, the blue collar. I don't know. You didn't need the extra bit. Extraneous.
So we talked a little bit about it on the news. If they stick with Cody and Roman for night 2 main event, obviously, what would you put as night 1 main event?
Don't know. I said from the start, the problem with CM Punk is that he's the epicenter of everything, and he overshadows everything. The force of his personality is unlike anything we've witnessed in pro wrestling 99% of the time. Nothing that feels that big to me. Maybe I'm skewed. Becky versus Rhea would be the one I would go for, because that felt big whenever they've interacted. Yeah. Becky's done some great, best career work since returning, despite not being as over, if that makes any sense. Rhea deserves it, realistically, for how over she's gotten, how she's the star of the Judgment Day, which pretty much carried Raw throughout its boom last year. So that would be the one for me. That'll be the one for me. Seth versus anybody else other than Punk, with the exception of Cody, even though they've done it 3 times.
Which again, then it becomes less about the pressure of satisfying the main event spot, so much as telling a story that satisfies a world title match on the WrestleMania card. And I think that's a different chat. I think that's where a Sami or Drew, not to like inadvertently neg them there, but I think that's where that you fit in and say, you're not going on last, but this can be hot, but you're not going on last.
It's nothing to do with Drew and Sami, who Sami's always fantastic. Drew's done the best work of his career, outside of the ring anyway. Only Lorcan was the best work of his career. And I say that with no irony whatsoever. It's the fact that it's Raw being 3 hours, still, even during a boom, begets more problems, especially when you like sort of have an issue that you need to resolve quite immediately. You realise that the solution you've already done,
it
by virtue of Raw being 3 hours.
I agree that it probably should be, if unless you're doing Seth Gunther, it probably should be a women's title match, whether Bayley and Io or Becky and Rhea. Is there any way they do Gunther for whoever for the IC title in the main event?
It makes its point, but I think
you're finally going to dethrone him there.
I think it makes its point in the wrong way.
Chad Gable just isn't headlining a WrestleMania. It's just not happening. I'd love to see it, but it ain't happening.
I think it's one of them things where, I bought Seth here, and it's not a disservice at all to the Intercontinental title if you put that on last. You're saying, look, like we're practicing what we preach here. The Intercontinental title is, I saw yesterday the sort of thing. Maybe Gunther in a multi-man, because then you get to see all these pairings. What's this all been about if you're putting Gunther in a multi-man ladder match? We're back to 2015 or whatever. Don't do that. But I do think for Seth's promo to carry weight and for Seth, for how much he cares, if that's not going on last, it best be a world title. And you've got like the Bayley thing, like I get why this is just like my personal biases, but think about how when like there was no long-term planning and how sometimes like a WrestleMania babyface would get hot with a month to go. Kofi Kingston springs to mind, but there were others in that era. Depending how well this Bayley babyface turn goes, and if they can just heat up at the right time, she's not turned yet. Like if they get the timing of it all right between now and sort of Elimination Chamber and Mania, the feeling might just be there. Like sometimes you get the fortune in wrestling, striking while the iron's hot. Like if you, when was it? Just before World's End, I'd have been like, Strapsworth Strickland, belting now. This guy has never felt hotter, and then they just cool a little bit. Like Bayley's not reached the peak of her heat yet, so it might feel, right now it's a Becky Rhea thing, it might feel like it's Bayley's spot, but I just think if it's not Seth's world title, it's probably got to be another world title. Because then, like Gunther, it's great, Gunther being the Intercontinental Champion, and this belt is everything, but you should still, Gunther should always be thinking, I'm going to move up at some point. Like, what's he entering the Rumble for if the IC title's bigger than the world title?
Yeah.
It's great that the IC title's as high as it is, but the world title should still be a little bit higher.